The market was loud, filled with shouts, metal chains, and the smell of fear. Cages lined the street, each holding someone who had lost everything. In the center, under the harsh sun, stood a woman with silver skin and tired eyes. She was not just any alien woman. She was a mother, clutching her small child against her side. The child's eyes were wide, full of hunger and fear. Yet the little one held onto her hand tightly, refusing to let go. The traders shouted her price, mocking her weakness. "Look at this one," one of them cried, pulling at the chain around her wrist. "She is still young, still strong, a fine worker, or perhaps a companion for those who can afford it." The crowd laughed. Some whistled. Others threw coins on the ground as if she was nothing more than a joke. The mother lowered her head, shame burning inside her chest. She had not wanted this fate, but the empty stomach of her child had left her. No choice. For weeks she had begged for food, for water, for mercy, but no one cared. So here she was, standing like an object to be sold, while her child hid behind her legs, whispering softly, "Mom, I'm scared." She bent down for a moment, pressing her hand gently to her child's cheek. Her voice was soft, almost broken. "Be strong, little one. Just a little more. I will make sure you eat tonight." But deep down she wondered if those words were lies. What kind of future could come from being sold like this? The auctioneer, a large alien with rough scales, raised his hand. "Start the bidding. Who will take this mother and her small child? 2 for 1, a rare deal." Laughter roared from the crowd. They did not see her as a person, they saw her as meat, as property. Every shout was another knife in her heart. The first bid came, low, insulting. 50 credits, shouted a man with greasy hands. The crowd laughed harder. Not even worth that much. Someone else jeered. 10 credits for the child, forget the mother. Another voice called out. The mother's chest tightened, her eyes filled with tears. She clutched her child close, terrified they would be separated. She would rather die than let them take her little one away. The auctioneer slammed his staff against the wooden stage. "Silence, this is not charity. She will not be given for scraps." Still, no one took it seriously. No one wanted her for real value, only as a toy for their cruelty. And then, the laughter stopped. A shadow moved at the edge of the market. The people turned their heads, confused. A human walked forward. He was tall, dressed simply, his face calm but unreadable. Humans rarely came to this part of the city, and never to these auctions. The crowd whispered in shock. What is a human doing here? Does he not know this place? He must be lost. But the human kept walking, his eyes fixed on the mother. She felt her heart pound. Was this man another buyer, another cruel master? She did not dare hope. Her child buried their face in her dress, trembling. The auctioneer grinned, thinking luck had come. Ah, finally, a serious buyer. Human, you have good taste, yes? This one is strong, she can serve you well. And the child? You can train it to be useful or sell it later. The word stabbed the mother deeper, her lips trembled, but she said nothing. What good were words here? She was powerless. The human did not answer at first. He simply stepped closer, his gaze moving from the mother to the child. He saw the small, hungry face, the shaking hands, the fear that clung to both of them like chains, and something in his eyes changed. The auctioneer rubbed his hands. Well, do we start at 100 credits? 200. The crowd mocked again. Why would a human waste money on this? Maybe he has strange tastes. Maybe he wants a pet. The mother closed her eyes, wishing she could disappear, but then she heard it, his voice calm and steady. I'll buy her, the human said. The crowd burst into laughter. You must be joking. She isn't worth even half, but... The human's tone did not waver. I said I'll buy her. The auctioneer blinked, surprised. Well then, name your price. The human stepped forward, reached into his pocket, and threw a pouch of credits onto the stage. The heavy sound silenced the laughter. It was more than enough. More than anyone else would ever pay. The mother gasped, staring at him with wide eyes. She couldn't believe it. Why? Why would a stranger, especially a human, spend so much for her? What did he want? Her heart beat faster, a storm of fear and confusion. Her child peeked from behind her dress, whispering, "Mom, is he going to take us?" The auctioneer grinned wide. "Sold! To the human!" The crowd roared again, but this time in disbelief. No one could understand it. No one could explain it. And the mother stood frozen, clutching her child, her shame heavier than ever. She had been sold like an object, but something about the human's steady eyes made her wonder. Was this truly the end of her dignity, or the beginning of something she could not yet imagine? The market slowly emptied after the auction ended. The crowd still whispered about the strange scene, a human paying so much for a worthless alien mother. Many laughed, saying he was a fool. Others shook their heads, muttering that humans were always strange, but the mother could not laugh. Her heart was heavy, her hands trembling as she clutched her child. The chain around her wrist was removed by the trader. The cold metal left marks on her skin. "Go with your new master," the trader sneered. "Be useful to him, or you'll be thrown back here." The mother lowered her head, shame burning inside. Her little one pressed closer to her side. She did not want to move. But the human turned toward her and simply said, "Come." His voice was calm, not harsh, not mocking. It confused her. Why? Did he sound different? They walked through the streets. The mother kept her eyes on the ground. Her child looked around nervously. Other aliens pointed and whispered as they passed. "Look at that human, walking with one of us like she is his equal. Disgusting. He must be mad." The words cut her like knives, but the human ignored them. His steps were steady as if the voices did not exist. At last, they reached a small, quiet house at the edge of the city. The door opened and warm air drifted out. The child's eyes widened. They had never seen a place so safe. The mother stepped inside carefully, still expecting chains, still expecting cruelty. But what she saw shocked her. There were no cages, no whips, no collars. Instead, there was a simple table, 2 chairs, and a fire that gave gentle warmth. The human removed his coat and placed it on the chair. Then, without a word, he went to the kitchen corner. The sound of dishes and water filled the room. The mother froze. What was happening? Shouldn't he demand service? Shouldn't he command her to kneel? Her heart beat faster. She whispered to her child, "Stay close, don't speak." The child nodded, clutching her hand tightly. Moments later, the human returned with bowls of food. Steam rose from the plates, warm stew with bread. The smell filled the air, rich and comforting. The child's stomach growled loudly, making them blush. The mother held her child back, whispering, "Wait, it could be a trick." The human placed the bowls on the table. Then, without hesitation, he sat down and took the first bite himself. He chewed slowly, calmly, then swallowed. No poison, no trick, no game. After a moment, he looked at the mother and said quietly, "Eat." The child pulled at her arm, eyes wide with hunger. The mother hesitated, her hands shaking. But then she saw the human take another bite, and another. Her fear slowly gave way to hope. At last, she guided her child to the table. The little one grabbed the bread and ate quickly. Tears filled the mother's eyes as she watched, her child eating real food after so long. Still, she did not eat right away. The human noticed. He pushed one bowl closer to her. "You need strength too," he said. She looked at him, confused by his kindness. Why was he speaking like this? What did he want from her? Finally, she took a spoonful of stew. The warmth spread through her body. It felt unreal. Every bite made her heart ache with both relief and fear. Relief that her child was fed, fear of what price she would have to pay. When the meal ended, silence filled the room. The child yawned and leaned against her side, full and sleepy. The mother gently brushed her child's hair. Then, gathering her courage, she looked at the human. "Why?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Why did you buy me? Why waste so much for someone like me?" The human looked at her for a long moment. His eyes were calm, steady. You were not safe there, he said simply. Now you are. The mother's heart pounded. She did not understand. No one ever gave without expecting something in return. She tightened her grip on her child. What do you want from me? She asked again, her voice sharper. Her fear made her defensive, ready to hear the worst, but the human shook his head. I don't want anything, he replied. You and your child deserve better than chains. The words hit her like a storm. She stared at him, unable to speak. Could it be true? Could this human mean what he said? Her chest tightened with a strange feeling she had forgotten long ago. Hope. But before she could answer, a knock sounded at the door. Loud, heavy, unfriendly. The mother froze, fear rushing back into her veins. The child hid behind her skirt. Trembling, the human stood, his face calm but his body tense. Through the wooden door came a harsh voice. Human, we know you bought one of ours today. Open up. The mother's blood ran cold. The traitors had come. Her nightmare was not over. Yet, the knock on the door echoed again. The mother clutched her child tightly, fear returning like a storm. She thought the human would give her away, like everyone else always did. But instead, he calmly walked to the door and spoke through the wood. She belongs to no one, he said, his voice firm. Go back to your trade. There was silence outside, then laughter, cruel and sharp. We will be back, the voice threatened. Heavy footsteps faded into the night. The mother stood frozen, her hands shaking. Her child hid behind her dress, whispering, Mom, don't let them take us. She knelt and held the little one close, whispering back, I won't, I promise. Yet her eyes were full of doubt because she did not know if that promise could be kept. The human returned to the table. Calm as before, he picked up the empty bowls and began to clean them. As if nothing had happened, as if the knock was just another sound. The mother stared at him, confused. Why didn't you let them in? She asked softly. He looked at her for a moment, then replied simply, Because you are safe here. Those words shook her more than the knock on the door. Safe? She had not heard that word in years. She lowered her gaze, whispering, Safe. People like me don't get that. The human didn't argue. He only placed another log on the fire, filling the room with warm light. Then he sat down again. His presence was strange, not commanding, not demanding. It was quiet, steady, and it made her chest feel heavy with emotions she could not name. The child tugged at her arm. Mom, can I sleep? The little one asked, their voice small but hopeful. She nodded and laid her child down on a folded blanket near the fire. Within moments, the child drifted into sleep, a soft smile on their lips. The mother watched, tears rising in her eyes. That smile, she had not seen it in so long. When she looked back at the human, she found him watching the child too. There was no hunger in his eyes, no cruelty, only something she could not understand, something gentle. She whispered, You fed us. Why? The human leaned back slightly and answered, Because you needed it. Her voice trembled. No one gives without wanting something back. He shook his head slowly. Then maybe they were not worth trusting. Her heart tightened. Could it be possible? Could someone give without chains, without conditions? She had lived too long in a world where kindness was a mask for cruelty. Her mind screamed not to believe him, but her heart wanted to. The firelight flickered across the walls. The mother sat quietly, her hands still trembling. She remembered the market, the laughter, the shame, how she had bowed her head and sold herself just to keep her child alive. And yet here she was in a stranger's house, eating food that was not poisoned, hearing words that were not cruel. It felt unreal, like a dream too fragile to hold. The human finally spoke again, his tone even softer than before. You don't have to bow your head here, he said. The words cut deep. She quickly lowered her eyes anyway, whispering, I am nothing. I was sold. I don't deserve more. The human leaned forward slightly. You are a mother, he said firmly. That alone makes you worth more than they will ever understand. Her breath caught in her chest. No one had ever said that to her, to be seen not as a slave, not as a burden, but as a mother. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. She turned her face away, ashamed of her weakness, but the human said nothing. He did not mock her, did not tell her to stop. He simply let the silence be. Later, when the fire grew lower, the human stood and brought out another blanket. He placed it gently over the sleeping child. The mother watched, her chest aching. He could have ignored them. He could have treated them as tools. Instead, he treated them like people, like they mattered. The mother whispered, almost to herself, "This cannot last. They will come back, they will take me." The human turned his head slightly. "Let them try," he said, his voice steady. She stared at him, shocked by his calmness. Did he not fear the traitors? Did he not fear the city's laws? Or was his courage greater than the chains she had always known? Her mind was full of questions, but one thought echoed louder than all the rest. Was this human truly different? Or was she walking into another trap of false kindness? She wrapped her arms around herself, trembling. Her heart whispered one word she was afraid to believe in: hope. The night stretched on. Her child slept peacefully for the first time in years. And the mother sat awake, staring into the fire. Beside her, the human sat quietly, a figure of calm strength. And she realized that for the first time she was not thinking about chains or shame. She was thinking about what dignity might feel like. Yet outside, in the darkness, whispers spread. The traitors had not forgotten. They were angry, humiliated, and they would return. The mother knew danger was close, but in this small, fragile moment, surrounded by warmth and silence, she allowed herself to believe, just for one night, that she and her child were more than property, that maybe, just maybe, the human's words were true, that they were safe. Morning came slowly. Golden light touched the small house, chasing away the shadows of the night. The mother opened her eyes, and for a moment she forgot where she was. She saw her child still sleeping peacefully under the blanket. The fire had burned low, but warmth still lingered in the air. It felt unreal, almost like a dream. For years her mornings had begun with hunger, chains, and cruel voices. But now silence surrounded her. The human was already awake. He sat at the table, repairing a broken chair. With calm hands, the mother blinked in confusion. Why was he working instead of demanding something from her? Why had he given them food and shelter without asking for a price? Her child stirred, rubbing tired eyes. "Mom, I'm not hungry," the little one whispered with a small smile. The mother's chest tightened with emotion. That simple sentence felt like a miracle. Not hungry. For the first time in months, her child was not hungry, but peace was fragile. When the mother stepped outside to fetch water from the well, whispers rose around her. Neighbors stood at their doors, staring. Their eyes were sharp, full of judgment. One alien woman spat on the ground, muttering, "Disgraceful, walking free as if she is equal." Another voice hissed, "The human is a fool. He will regret taking her in." And someone else whispered louder, "She is not his wife, not his kin. What does she give him?" Shame, nothing more. The mother lowered her head, her cheeks burning. Her hands shook as she lifted the water jug. Every word stung like a whip. She wanted to run back inside, to hide, but she also knew the whispers would not stop. They would only grow louder. When she returned, her child asked innocently, "Mom, why were they whispering?" Her throat tightened, but she forced a smile. "Nothing, my little one, just noise." Yet her eyes betrayed her. Filled with worry, the human noticed. He put down his tools and asked, "What happened?" She hesitated, then whispered, "They talk. They say you will regret this. They say I am trouble." Her voice cracked with fear. "I should leave before they bring more danger to you." The child gasped, clutching her arm. "No, don't leave." Tears filled their eyes. The mother hugged her child close, her own tears burning. She looked at the human desperately. You don't understand. The traitors won't forget, the neighbors won't forgive. If they think you protect me, they will turn on you too. The human leaned back in his chair, his expression calm. I understand more than you think, he said. Fear spreads faster than truth, but fear will not decide what I do. His words were strong, but the mother's fear was stronger. She stood, trembling. You risk everything for me and my child. Why? We are nothing to you. The human met her eyes, steady and unshaken. You are not nothing, he replied firmly. You are a mother. That makes you worth protecting. Her heart trembled. She wanted to believe him, but doubt clung to her like chains. What if tomorrow he changed his mind? What if kindness today became cruelty tomorrow? Her life had been nothing but betrayal. How could she trust him now? The day passed with heavy silence. Every time she looked at her child smile, her heart ached with both joy and dread. Every time she heard voices outside, her chest tightened. The walls of the small house felt safe, but she knew the world outside was sharpening its knives. That night, when the child slept again, the mother whispered to the human, I should go. Her voice shook. If I stay, they will come. They will hurt you. I cannot bring this danger to your home. The human looked at her for a long time, then shook his head. If you go, they will find you again. They will sell you again. Do you want your child to live that life? Her lips trembled, tears filling. Her eyes, no, never, she whispered. Then stay, he said simply. You are safe here. But safety was fragile, and fear refused to leave her heart. That night she lay awake beside her sleeping child. She could still hear the neighbors' voices in her mind. She could still feel the weight of shame pressing on her chest. She turned her face toward the human's shadow in the firelight. Why was he different? Why had he chosen to protect instead of abandon? As she drifted into uneasy sleep, a sound carried faintly through the night air. Not laughter, not whispers, but footsteps, heavy and many, echoing from the dark streets. The traitors had not forgotten, and their anger was returning with them. The mother's heart beat faster even in her dreams, because deep down, she knew the whispers of fear were becoming something far worse. The morning sun slipped through the cracks of the window. The little child stretched and rubbed sleepy eyes, their face brighter than it had been in months. The mother sat nearby, her hands folded nervously, still thinking about the whispers from the neighbors, still hearing the heavy footsteps in her dreams. Her heart was restless, but when she looked at her child smiling, she forced herself to stay calm. The human entered the room, carrying a basket of bread and fruit. He placed it on the table without a word, as if this was ordinary. The child gasped in delight, running over to the table. Food again? The little one whispered, almost not believing. The human nodded with a small smile. Eat. The child quickly grabbed a piece of bread, chewing happily. Then, with innocent eyes, they looked at the human and said the words that froze the room. Thank you, Father. The mother stiffened, her breath catching. Her eyes widened in shock. She turned sharply toward her child, whispering in panic. No, don't say that. But the child only blinked, confused. He gave us food. He kept us safe. Isn't that what fathers do? The mother's hands shook, her heart heavy with shame and fear. She bowed her head, whispering quickly, Forgive my child. They don't understand. They don't know. Her voice cracked with embarrassment. She expected the human to be angry, to push the child away, but instead he laughed softly, shaking his head. He reached out and gently ruffled the child's hair. No need for sorry, he said, his voice calm. The child's face lit up even brighter, leaning into the gentle touch. The mother's eyes filled with tears, not knowing what to feel. Was it shame? Relief? Hope? She could not tell, but outside shadows were moving. The traitors had not forgotten the humiliation of the auction. They whispered in the alleys, No human can steal from us. We will take back what belongs to us, and we will make an example of him. Their anger grew with every passing hour. Inside the small house, the child continued to smile. They skipped around the room, holding the bread like a treasure. The mother tried to hush them. Be quiet, little one. "Do not draw attention." But the child giggled and said, "Why, Mom? We are safe here. He protects us." The words stabbed her heart with both joy and dread. Later that day, as they shared another meal, the child sat between them. They're small, hands resting on the table, eyes moving from mother to human. Finally, the child whispered, "Will we stay here forever?" The mother looked down, her throat tightening. Before she could answer, the human said softly, "As long as you need." The mother turned her head sharply toward him. She whispered with trembling lips, "You don't know what you are saying. The traitors will not stop. They will come for me, and when they do, you will be in danger too." The human's eyes were steady. "Then let them come," he said. The child clapped their small hands with excitement. "See, Mom? He's strong. We don't need to be afraid anymore." The mother forced a smile at her child, but inside her chest fear still coiled tight. She wanted to believe, but the world had never allowed her such hope. Still, watching her child laugh and call the human father, she could not deny the fragile warmth growing inside her heart. That night, as the fire burned low, the child curled up close to both of them. The mother tried to move the little one away, embarrassed, but the child refused. "No, I want to stay here, with you, Mom, and with him." The human said nothing, only covered the child with a blanket. For the first time in years, the little one slept between safety and warmth, not fear, but far away, in the darkness beyond the city walls. The traitors. Prepared, they sharpened blades, loaded weapons. Their leader growled, "Tomorrow we return. That human will regret mocking us. The mother will crawl back in chains and the child will be sold." The others cheered, their footsteps heavy on the dirt road. Inside the small house, the mother stirred from uneasy sleep. Her dreams were full of chains and cruel laughter. She opened her eyes, her heart pounding, and whispered to herself, "It is coming. The storm is coming." She looked at her child, sleeping peacefully with a faint smile. Her tears fell silently, because she knew innocence could not protect against the cruelty waiting outside. But then she looked at the human, sitting awake by the fire, watching the door with sharp eyes. He did not look afraid, he looked ready, and for the first time she wondered, maybe courage, not fear, was what her child saw in him. Maybe that was why the word father had slipped so easily from innocent lips. Still, in her heart, one question echoed louder than the fire's crackle. Could one human truly stand against the world that had always crushed her? The next morning was heavy with silence. Clouds covered the sky and the air smelled of rain. The mother sat at the table, her hands wrapped tightly around her child's shoulders. Her heart felt restless, as if danger was already standing outside. The human prepared quietly, moving through the small house, checking the door, the windows, the lock. He looked calm, but his eyes were sharp, alert. He knew what was coming. The child, innocent and unaware of the storm gathering, played with a small wooden cup. They giggled softly, whispering, "Look, Mom, it's a drum." The sound of laughter eased the mother's chest for only a moment. Then she heard it. Footsteps, heavy and many, echoing down the street. Her blood froze. "They're here," she whispered, clutching her child tighter. The door rattled, as fists pounded against it. "Open up, human," a voice roared, filled with anger. "You dare steal from us? You dare shame us? Return what belongs to us now?" The mother trembled, tears already stinging her eyes. She turned to the human, her voice breaking. "Please, don't fight them. Just give me back, take my child away, save yourself." The human's jaw tightened, but his voice was steady. "No," he said. "You are not theirs. You are not a thing to be given away." The words shocked her, cutting through her fear. No one had ever spoken of her like that before. The door shook again as the traitors slammed their fists harder. "Last chance, human. Open or we break it down." The human stepped forward, placing himself between the door and the mother. His broad back blocked her view of the danger outside. For a moment, she felt shielded, as if his presence alone was a wall stronger than steel. The child peeked out from behind her dress, their small voice whispering, "Mom, he's not afraid." The mother pressed her child close, whispering back, "Yes, but he should be." The lock snapped as the door burst open. A group of armed traders stormed inside, their faces twisted with rage. The leader stepped forward, his voice dripping with venom. "Move aside, human. This woman is ours. She was. Sold, she was paid for before. She is property." The human's eyes narrowed, his voice like stone. "She is not property. She is free. She is under my protection now." The traders laughed cruelly. "A human protecting an alien mother? You've gone mad." One sneered. "Stand down or we'll cut you down with her." Another growled. The mother's heart pounded so hard she thought it would break her chest. She wanted to scream, to beg him not to fight, but no words came. Out. She could only watch as the human stood tall, unarmed, facing blades and chains. One trader lunged forward, swinging his weapon. The human caught the strike with his bare hand, twisting the attacker's wrist until the weapon clattered to the ground. The crowd gasped. With a swift move, he shoved the man back into the others. "Leave," the human said, his voice calm, but carrying a weight that froze the air. The traders hesitated, their laughter faltering. They had expected fear, surrender, not this strength. The leader growled, raising his chain whip. "You'll die for this, human." He swung, the metal cracked through the air, but the human stepped forward, seizing the whip mid-swing and yanking it from the leader's hand. The crowd of neighbors had gathered outside, their whispers filling the street. "Look, the human is fighting them." "No one dares defy the traders." The mother pressed her child's face into her chest, shielding them from the violence. Tears streamed down her face. She thought the man would die here, that courage alone could not stop so many. But the human did not step back. He stood his ground, his eyes burning with something stronger than fear. The traders attacked together, but he fought with speed and precision. He did not strike to kill, but his every movement was sharp, every step pushing them back. The mother's breath caught as she realized he was not just a kind man, he was a warrior, hidden beneath his quiet eyes. Finally, the leader stumbled, his weapon gone, his pride shattered. The human stepped closer, his voice steady as thunder. "She is not yours. She will never be yours again. If you return, I will end this fight differently." The traders looked at one another, rage burning in their eyes, but fear stronger in their hearts. Slowly, they backed away, dragging their injured men with them. The leader spat on the floor, his voice shaking with fury. "This is not over, human. You will regret this defiance." When the last of them left, the house fell silent. The mother collapsed to her knees, clutching her child tightly, sobbing. Her tears fell onto the floor as her child hugged her back, whispering, "Mom, he saved us. He saved us." She looked up at the human, her vision blurred with tears. He stood at the door, watching the street, his shoulders steady. She whispered with a trembling voice, Why would you risk everything for us?" The human turned, his gaze softening as it met hers. "Because you are worth it," he said simply. The mother's breath caught. Her heart, broken and scarred, felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. But outside, in the shadows, the traders whispered among themselves. They were humiliated but not defeated. They would return again, stronger, angrier. And the mother knew the battle was far from over, yet in this moment, as her child clung to, her and the human stood tall before her. She realized something she never thought she would. Chains had been broken, not by force, but by courage. And courage could change everything. The street outside slowly grew quiet after the fight. The traders had left, their threats still hanging in the air like a dark cloud. The neighbors whispered among themselves, shocked and amazed. No one had ever seen a human stand against the bay traders before. But inside the small house, silence fell heavy. The mother knelt on the floor, her child wrapped in her arms. Her body shook from both fear and relief. Tears ran down her cheeks, but this time they were not only of shame. They were tears of survival, of hope she did not dare to believe in. Her child whispered softly, "Mom, we're safe now." The words were innocent, full of trust. The mother kissed the top of her child's head, holding them closer, yet her heart still trembled, because safety had always been temporary in her life. The human stood by the door, watching the street until he was certain the traitors were gone. Then he closed it gently and turned toward them. He saw her tears, her shaking hands, and the way she clutched her child as if letting go would mean losing everything. Slowly, he knelt down in front of her, his voice calm. "It's over. They won't take you tonight." The mother looked at him through blurred eyes. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Why? Why would you do this for us? I am nothing. I was sold like an object. I bring danger to your life." The human shook his head firmly. "You are not nothing. You are a mother. You are worth more than their chains, more than their cruelty." Her breath caught, her chest aching with emotions she had buried long ago. The child looked at the human with wide, innocent eyes. "You didn't let them hurt Mom. You didn't let them take me." They hugged him suddenly, small arms wrapping around his neck. The mother gasped, reaching out to pull her child back, but the human only placed a gentle hand on the child's back, returning the embrace softly. "It's all right," he said, his voice steady. "I will protect you both." The mother's heart broke all over again, but this time not from pain. It broke from the weight of kindness, from the feeling of being seen as more than a slave. She lowered her head, tears spilling freely, whispering, "No one has ever said that to me. No one has ever treated me like this." The human's eyes softened. "Then it's time someone did." As the night deepened, the fire crackled softly, filling the house with gentle warmth. The child slept peacefully once more, curled between them. The mother sat quietly, watching the flames, her mind a storm of questions. She thought about the auction, the chains, the mocking voices. She thought about how she had been ready to give up everything, even her dignity, just to feed her child. And now, here she was, fed, sheltered, protected. It felt impossible, too, fragile, like it would vanish if she dared to believe in it. The human spoke quietly, breaking the silence. "You don't have to bow your head anymore." The mother turned toward him, her lips trembling. "But I don't know how to be free," she whispered. "I've lived too long in shame, in fear." The human's gaze was steady, filled with something she could not name. "Then learn," he said. "Not alone. With me. With your child. Step by step." Her chest tightened, her tears falling again. She wanted to argue, to say it was impossible, but the warmth in his voice broke the chains of doubt in her heart. She realized he was not offering her pity. He was offering her dignity, a chance to live not as a slave, not as property, but as herself. The child stirred in sleep, mumbling softly, "Father." The mother froze again, shame and fear rising in her, but the human smiled faintly, looking at the child with gentle eyes. He whispered, "If that's what they see me as, then I'll carry that name with honor." The mother gasped, her heart trembling. She whispered back, You don't have to." But he shook his head slowly. "I don't have to. I choose to." The word struck her deeper than any chain ever had. Choice. Something she had never been given. She had been forced, sold, mocked, bound. But here, in this small house, she heard a word that changed everything. Choice. The human chose to protect her. He chose to shelter her child. He chose to give without demanding. And now, for the first time, she realized she could choose too. With trembling hands, she reached out, touching his arm lightly. Her voice broke as she whispered, "Then I choose to trust you." Her tears fell, but they were no longer only of sorrow. They were the tears of chains breaking, of a heart learning to live again. The fire burned low as the night grew quiet. Outside, the traitors whispered their revenge. But inside, something stronger than fear had taken root. A bond built not on chains, not on shame, but on love. The mother closed her eyes, holding her child close with one hand, resting her other hand gently against the human's. For the first time, she felt not like property, not like nothing, but like a woman, a mother, chosen by love instead of sold by chains. And as the firelight flickered across their faces, the truth of HFY shone clear. One human's courage and compassion had done what no market, no chain, no cruelty could ever break. He gave them not just safety, but dignity. Not just shelter, but a family, and in that moment the future no longer felt like darkness, it felt like hope.